You're watching Cable 2.
Good evening and welcome to the March 8th, 2022 Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. I am Deanna Kaplan, Board Chair, and I appreciate your attendance and also say good evening to our viewers on Cable 2. Will you please rise as we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing during our invocation given by Vice Chair Lyda Calvert-Hayes.
Let us pray. Tonight we come together asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussions, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of this community. We ask in your name, amen.
Amen. Our first order of business tonight is the agenda review, but I would like to amend the agenda because we will need to go back into closed session after this meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Do I also have a motion to approve the agenda as written with the amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is our special recognitions. We have the Arts in Education Resolution presented by Andy Kraft.
Good evening, distinguished board, Board Chair Kaplan, Superintendent McManus. My name is Andrew Kraft, Director of Arts Education. With me is Chase Law, President and CEO of the Arts Council of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. We are here today to recognize the importance of arts education in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. March is recognized nationally as Arts and Education Month, as well as Music in Our Schools Month and Theater in Our Schools Month. Last year, WSFCS had 235 arts teachers that served 30,000 students enrolled in K-12 music, 33,000 students enrolled in K-12 visual arts, and over 2,000 students enrolled in dance or theater. In the 2020-2021 school year, 72% of all WSFCS students were enrolled in some form of the arts. Today, we ask the Board of Education and Superintendent McManus to sign the proclamation to continue to maintain and grow our arts programs in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. The proclamation reads as follows. Arts are education, Board of Education resolution, whereas all students have the right to an arts education that includes dance, music, theater, and visual arts taught by certified arts educators in partnership with community providers, whereas arts education has the power to change students' lives, whereas arts education is a key to reigniting students' learning in a post-COVID-19 world, whereas arts education helps nurture healthy, inclusive communities where all points of view are respected, whereas arts education experiences help students understand their own cultural roots and appreciate others' cultural roots and traditions, whereas arts education provides the social and emotional well-being of students and fosters a more positive, safer school environment. Whereas arts education is part of the well-rounded education for every student as outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act and in state law. Therefore, Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District pledges to maintain and grow our arts education programs in the 2021-2022 school year and beyond, adopted by the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board of Education this 8th day of March, 2022. And I believe Chase would like to say a couple things.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for allowing me to be with you all today and for considering this proclamation and adopting this resolution. We have had a long-standing partnership with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System, and we want that to continue well into the future. And so I want to thank you in advance for adopting this and providing arts education to all of our children and recognizing it as a major priority in our education system. Enhances all aspects of education, so we're really grateful for that support. This is a state initiative. We have 100 counties in our state, and the goal is to have all 100 counties adopt this same resolution. There are 8 counties currently, and Forsyth County will make the 9th. So I want to thank you in advance, and I look forward to our continued partnership.
Thank you for your time. Happy Arts and Education Month, and thank you for supporting arts education in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools.
Thank you. Next is the proclamation for National School Social Work Week, which is March 7th through the 11th, and presented by Frederica Stokes.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent McManus. Today we are here to recognize a special group of educators. School social workers are the link between the home, the school, and the community. They are extremely resourceful, and they work tirelessly to put students' and families' needs first. Today, we ask that you sign a proclamation declaring that March 6th through the 12th will be National School Social Work Week in our district. The proclamation reads, whereas school social workers are mental health professionals who provide students and families with services related to social, emotional, and life adjustments to school and/or society. And whereas school social workers are specifically trained and qualified to identify barriers to learning and achievement and develop and implement strategies to address and eliminate these barriers. And whereas school social workers provide the vital link between the home, school, and community and support services that can make a positive impact on students' academic achievement. And whereas school social workers help students achieve increased success, improve interpersonal relationships, cope with crisis situations, learn problem-solving skills, improve attendance, and build self-esteem. And whereas school social workers promote the academic mission of schools by fostering educational environments that are safe, have supportive, fair, and responsive policies, and emphasize early intervention and positive behavior interventions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board of Education and Superintendent Tricia McManus do hereby proclaim March 6th through the 12th, 2022 as National School Social Work Week. Adopted by the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education this 8th day of March. Tonight, I would like to recognize our school social worker. Our school social worker director of social work services is Sheila Thorpe. If you could please stand for your outstanding service. Our lead graduation coach, Rhonda Mays, if you would please stand. And all of our other school social workers, if you guys would please stand for your outstanding work. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you do for our students.
Yes, thank you so much for all that you do. Next are the North Carolina Public Relations Blue Ribbon Awards presented by Superintendent McManus.
Thank you so much. So I'm very excited this evening to present recognition to one of our amazing district teams, and that is our communications team. And so the North Carolina, I'm going to read something to you, and then I'm going to have them come up. The North Carolina School Public Relations Association has honored Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools for excellence in communications. The WSFCS Marketing and Communications Department earned a total of 30 Blue Ribbon awards for outstanding and effective communication. The awards were presented during a virtual ceremony on February 11, 2022. Our district was one of 37 school districts statewide to receive a Blue Ribbon Award, and this year's categories included, their submission categories were marketing, digital media engagement, electronic media, excellence in writing, publications, image graphic design, photography, and special projects and events. So we submitted work, representative samples of work in all of those categories and ended up with 15 gold, which is the most in the entire state. So very exciting. And if you look, if in Simbly, if anyone wants to see them, they're all listed there. But some of the ones, I'll just read a few of the things that were submitted. Open Book, which is a podcast series. Yay, TJ back there, that's his brainchild. Welcome to Pre-K, After the Whistle, Profile of a Principal about Donald Wyatt, East Forsyth Basketball Schedule, Souvenir Program, First Year Teachers Celebration, 2021 Core Awards, and the list goes on. They're all posted, but every one of these were recognized with an award. And so I'd like to, at this time, Brent is the amazing leader of this team, and if you and your entire team would come forward, I'm going to have you introduce them real quick. So communications team, come forward. Yay. I'll stand up here. And now off the information, I'm going to just speak to this team. They truly are unbelievable. And just knowing that all of them, the way they capture video, the way they put things together to share stories, and honestly, their professionalism, customer service, can-do spirit. I always tell Brent, you must be an amazing leader, because I can tell you this is an amazing team. And again, I love going into their meetings. They have this spirit about them and this family feel in all of their meetings, and they just do an amazing job. So I'm going to have you introduce your team. Congratulations, Brent.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can't take any credit for their work because they do all the work most of the time, let me say. So Chris Runge has been with us just about the longest of anybody on this panel here, but he's our Executive Director of Communications. TJ James is our Cable 2 manager, so he's responsible for all of our TV production, video production. Beside him is Jennifer Miranda I always say your last name wrong, Jennifer. Melagar, I want to say Melagar. Jennifer's our new district receptionist, so she's working with us this year. Kevin Wren is an old buddy of mine that I stole from Fox 8 to come on over here with us and join the dark side and public relations from TV news. But no, Wren's one of our videographers. Jake Browning actually is brand new to us. Beside Kevin, he is the new Kim Underwood. So those of you that remember Kim Underwood that has retired, Jake is our new Kim. So you'll see Jake in schools all over the place taking pictures. Can't see Mishika down there. Mishika Meadows is our graphic artist for the district, and then Elaine Sapp is kind of our mama bear. She keeps us all in line, but she's our administrative assistant, and she's been in this role a couple of times. Here, when I was a baby reporter, I met Elaine when I covered the school district, and now she's back with this team again. So I have a fantastic team, and I say thank you to you guys for all the great work that you do.
Deanna? You've got yourself a job. Yes. Thank you. Can I say something? I just need to say that we can't have that recognition go by without recognizing that Uncle Brent, who is the voice of the district and who so many people both love to hear from and hate to hear from, but has one of the biggest fan clubs in the entire county. Just thank you so much for being such a good face to the district all the time.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? So I just have to respond to that. So, you know, I get the privilege at the Christmas parade or the holiday parade in downtown to ride with Brent. And you are not kidding about his fan club. The entire time it's like, Brent Campbell, the whole way down the parade. And he always, this is how he responds. He goes, I'll text you, I'll call you. So he is definitely a star. Thanks, Brent.
That's great. Before we begin our public comments, I'd like to recognize a group of Boy Scouts in the audience. If you all could stand, I believe you all are here to earn your citizenship in the community badge. So thanks for being here. At this time, we will hear public comments on the agenda items. The instructions for this section were on the sheet as you signed up. The most important rule to remember is that we ask that you be kind and respectful, no cheers or jeers during or after each speaker, and know that we cannot talk about sensitive or private student or personnel information in this public setting. You have 3 minutes to speak, and if you have more to share, always know you can email us directly. Thank you. So our first speaker is Val Young.
Good evening, Board Chair Kaplan, board members, and Superintendent McManus. I'm here to be kind and to give great words, okay? So the thing I want to talk to you about is the Teacher and School Leadership Incentive Program. When I read it, happy camper, here I am. I was so happy about us being able to recruit and retain highly qualified principals and teachers, because that's what we need in this school system. That's what we need to recruit and reclaim people, but we also need to keep these great people that we have here now. But the part that made me happiest is expanding the Teacher Cadet Program. Because for years, I've been saying, well, how do we start a new Teacher Cadet Program in other schools? And the one thing that I have been concerned about, I know that y'all have intentionality when you do things, but I want to put it out into the world, is that we make sure that underserved communities, our schools in underserved communities, have Teacher Cadet programs. Because I was the bus child, so a lot of times I was the only African American in the classroom. And so my parents used to tell us, you know, don't cause me any shame when you go to school. You have to do this, you have to do that. But I was the representation for my entire culture in my school. So when I made a decision to be a teacher at 6 years old, I had parents that made sure that that was how I interacted into my world. If I misbehaved, I told you this before, but if I misbehaved, teachers don't do that. If I came home with a C, teachers don't make Cs. And it was always, you're going to college. You can't be a teacher unless you go to college. But every child does not have someone backing them that way. Not that they're not excellent students and excellent citizens, but sometimes when you're in an underserved world, you're just trying to make it. But if I tell you, we have this program that you can teach the future and make a difference, there are children who are going to feel like I did. I want to be just like my first grade teacher because I liked the way she made me feel. I can put it into words now, but then as a child, I didn't want to do anything to disappoint her. So that's something about the way she made me feel. I wanted to make somebody else feel that way. So that's how I went into this career. And that's how I want some children to go into their new career. They may not know what they want to do. But if we offer a good teacher cadet program and they hear that, that might spark that idea, I could change the world by teaching. And that's what we want, someone to change the world. So I wanted to put that out into the world, to have that intentionality about underserved areas, because I believe that in every school we have diamonds in the rough. And all we have to do is shine them up a little bit, and we have something to work with. So I'm glad that we're having something to do with Teacher Academy.
Thank you.
Teacher Cadet.
Next, we have Sabrina Kuhn Godfrey.
Good evening, Chair Kaplan, members of
Good
the
evening.
board, Superintendent McManus. I am Sabrina Kuhn Godfrey, and I'm just going to comment very briefly on the two discussion items. The first is market share. I'm a public school parent. I have 2 children in the district, and I fully support public schools. I feel like all of the public funding that comes to the district should be used for public schools and public education. The next item I want to comment on is the TSL grant. I've seen firsthand how hard our educators and staff are working, and I'm extremely encouraged to see that the TSL grant proposes an in-house pathway to licensure for our staff and the teacher cadet program. These opportunities are not only an excellent use of funds, but a proactive approach to retaining and looking for opportunities to, current and future staffing concerns. Thank you all for the hard work that you're doing, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Christy Robinson.
Good evening, Board Chair Kaplan,
Good evening.
Board, and Superintendent McManus. Thank you so much for allowing public comment. My name is Christy Robinson. I'm the mother of 2 Winston-Salem Forsyth County students, a PTA co-president, a reading tutor in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. I've taught in 4 public elementary schools, 2 of which were Title I. Public education should be the premier option for any student in any community. Per the market share slides for tonight's meeting, in the last 15 years, enrollment has dropped across the state in urban public school districts by 11%. In Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools by 6%. This means that more government funding is going to charter, home, and private schools. I would like to applaud the board for looking critically at these numbers and for searching for ways to create higher quality education and for recruiting and retaining quality educators. One grant addressed in agenda item 9B tonight is an excellent start. You've identified schools with high teacher turnover, and you've allotted funds to help prevent that. Thank you. In these increasingly polarizing times, please continue to work together with transparency to benefit all of our children. There's so many things that you are working on, but I ask you to continue to advocate for 2 specific things on a state level. 1, increasing public school funding. North Carolina ranks 43rd in the nation for average starting teacher salaries. We can do better. 2, reducing overcrowding and high class sizes in grades 4 and above. My daughter's 4th grade class has 31 children in it. That's too many. If I may, I would like to sincerely express my gratitude to each one of you. Thank you for serving as citizen leaders. This pandemic has made a difficult job even harder. You are making important and complex decisions that directly impact our children's lives. Your actions and dedication are sincerely appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Katie Grody.
Good evening, Board Chair Kaplan, the
Good
board,
evening.
and Superintendent McManus. My name is Katie Grody. I graduated from our public schools, and I have 2 small kids now who will start in the public school system soon. I also work as a child therapist here at an agency and serve students in the school building at 2 of our public schools. I'm here today to ask you all to reconsider putting metal detectors in our schools and instead putting those funds towards preventative and restorative measures. Metal detectors are expensive, and research has shown that they are not effective. Metal detectors are also not trauma-informed, and I really think that needs to be considered as we discuss school safety. Many kids in our district have experienced trauma, and they come to school carrying that. Studies have found that more surveillance in schools actually increases the students' sense of fear and distress, not safety. Metal detectors are popular because they are visible, but there's no evidence to support that hardening our schools prevents violence. And there is some evidence to show that their presence could preclude our ability to foster a safe and welcoming school environment for our students. One of the ways that I think we could do better by our students as it relates to safety is to increase the number of mental health therapists in our schools. Our teachers, staff, and parents do such a great job identifying the students who could be potentially struggling or have possible concerns. In my role, I get to work directly with the school counselors and the school social workers. Our partnership allows it to be so that when they identify a student who is struggling and they need more help than the time and capacity that they have, they can make the referral to me. I meet with the family and the students, and we meet and do therapy in the schools every week. I know several schools in the district have similar partnerships, but I really think we could do more. My caseload at my 2 schools are full, and the students there are on the list of needing to be referred to me. Providing therapy right there in the school increases equity as it relates to mental health access. It makes it easier on parents because it's during the school day, and it allows for schools to stay connected to the students' treatment because I'm right there talking with teachers and staff and coaches, etc. So while hardening our schools with visible safety measures might send the message that we're responding, metal detectors are costly and ineffective, and only a fraction right now of our youth who need mental health services actually receive them. One of the ways that we can make our schools safer is by changing that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Valerieborough.
Good evening, Superintendent McManus and school board members. My name is Valerieborough. I have an 8th grader and a high school senior in Winston-Salem schools. I am here to support the purchase of 95 automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, with the funds from the school safety grant. About a year ago, my son's friend, Pablo Hortal, who's here tonight, had a sudden cardiac arrest during soccer practice at Atkins. Their soccer coach performed CPR right away before the athletic trainer arrived within minutes with the AED. Without both the AED and CPR, Pablo most likely would have died. According to the CDC, about 2,000 seemingly healthy people under age 25 in the US die each year of sudden cardiac arrest. Yet, there is currently no North Carolina law requiring AEDs in schools. Getting the 95 AEDs is a great first step to help save not only students, but teachers and staff. But I would also recommend that more money from the grant be used to provide CPR training to teachers, administrators, and staff. When cardiac arrest occurs, the first line of action is to provide CPR while the AED is being retrieved. They go hand in hand. Instead of funding the purchase of metal detectors, I support funding CPR training and additional AEDs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Pablo, I just want to say we're honored that you're here tonight. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Melissa Paulson.
Good evening, Superintendent McManus and school board members. My name is Melissa Paulson, and I'm a parent of 2 elementary school students in the district. I mostly came tonight to just say thank you to you all for your service and for everything you're doing for our school district. This seems like a really thankless and increasingly difficult job, but just I want you to know that the time that you take to make really thoughtful decisions and tough decisions about the public education here is so appreciated and so critical. So I just want to start by saying thank you. Second, I wanted to talk about the school safety grant that's on the agenda tonight and the proposed installation of metal detectors in our school campuses and administrative buildings. I'd encourage the board to consider using the available funding for other, more effective ways of reducing the threat of gun violence in our schools rather than installing metal detectors. They give us a false sense of security. There's little evidence that they successfully detect weapons in schools or prevent school shootings. And I guess if the board does pursue this plan to install metal detectors, I would just ask that you present the evidence to show that they do in fact reduce gun violence in schools, and also show the plan for staffing those metal detectors, how that would be paid for, and then the costs of maintenance and replacement over time, how that would be paid for as well. Rather than installing metal detectors, this funding could be used in more effective ways to keep our schools safe. This could include staffing for threat assessment programs, hiring mental health professionals, as we've heard, and a campaign to ensure that families are keeping their firearms secured so that children don't have access to guns. My kids were hiding in cramped storage rooms this fall during the lockdown. Like many others, I'm sure, they were comforting friends who were crying in fear. So that should not be part of their school day. Preventing gun violence in our schools so they have a safe environment to learn is incredibly important. I just ask the board to use the funding that's available to pay for effective ways addressing this problem and not for metal detectors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Katie Sonnen-Lee.
Good evening, board and superintendent. I'm here to talk about the school leader grant that's on the agenda. I think Val Young said a lot of the things I was going to say, so I will not repeat what she said. But the school leader grant, I first just want to commend the district for going after this funding. It's a really important grant for us to have and to continue to renew every period, year, 2 years, however long the grant is for, because this is super important. I also encourage the district to lean into the equitable piece of this project as it's outlined in the agenda materials. And we have to put the most resources and the best educators with the students who need the most support. So I was pleased to see the long list of schools that are on that list, but I would really encourage you to prioritize there, to really look at the schools that really are underperforming every single year. We know those students have the potential. We know, we just need to give them the opportunity to succeed. Research shows how impactful it is for students of color to have a teacher that is their same race, and it's most profound for Black boys from low-income backgrounds. So when we are doing this program, let's make sure that we are really recruiting and advertising and really trying to get as many Black and brown educators in our schools as we can. According to research from University of North Carolina, Professor Constance Lindsay, the population of Black and Latinx students in our state is increasing. I think we all know that. But the opposite is happening with educator diversity. It's getting more and more white, while our students are getting less and less white. We know that having a teacher that looks like you, that comes from the same racial background as you, is really effective. For the most underserved Black boys, having a Black teacher in elementary school, just one Black teacher, reduced the high school dropout rate by 39%. That's huge. So when we're recruiting for this program, I really encourage you to focus on recruiting Black and brown educators for this, because we need them in our schools, our students need them, our community needs them. And we could close the opportunity gap. This is a huge piece of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Terry Nelson.
Good evening, Board Chair Kaplan, the board,
Good evening.
and Superintendent McManus. My name is Terry Nelson. I'm a retired special needs teacher and the grandmother of one of your students. I would like to address the school safety grant and the proposed installation of equipment, including AEDs and the 73 metal detectors for our school campuses and administrative buildings. I support the purchase of the AEDs. They are simple to use and have been proven to save lives. However, I'm very concerned about the installation of metal detectors because there is little evidence to support their effectiveness in reducing school violence. The idea of using metal detectors is an understandable reaction to gun violence in schools. They are a symbolic barrier that signals a presence of security. But available data suggests that schools are more successful in identifying weapons during random searches of students without the use of metal scanning devices. In addition, the cost of fully implementing a metal detectors program is beyond the scope of this grant. Even if this grant were able to cover the cost of the installation and provide the staffing for supervision, and the cost of maintenance and upgrades. This would only address symptoms related to school gun violence and not the root of the problem. One problem is preventing access to firearms. About 80% of guns used in school violence have come from the shooter's home or the homes of family or friends. I would like the school board to continue to encourage safe gun storage in homes. Another problem is the critical shortage of staff who are specially trained to identify and guide students in need of support. Shooters often show warning signs of potential violence. These professionals foster trust and help ensure that students have opportunities to report warning signs. Parents and caregivers have the greatest influence on children, but we can't be with them for the 35 hours they spend each week at school. I want the school board to use funding to hire more specially trained professionals so my granddaughter and all students will have trusted adults they can go to when their family is not there. This critical step would have a far greater positive impact than the metal detector program. My granddaughter talks about lockdown drills, and she seems to take them in stride. She told me last week after a drill that she thinks someone stole something, and the kids had to be very quiet so the principal could catch them. I hope with all my heart that our children never ever again experience a violent school event that requires a real lockdown. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Alicia Salazar.
Hello all. Just going to be super honest that this is an emotional topic for me. I'm already crying, so, okay. I'm going to start with basic stuff and then move to the emotional stuff and try not to cry the whole time. My name is Alicia Salazar, and I have 2 kids currently in school in the district. Okay, I'm going to completely change what I was going to do and just skip to the good stuff. Okay, I saw that there is training for I Love You Guys included in the funding for the grant. My son is a freshman at Mount Tabor. And September 1st was so incredibly traumatic for everyone in the school and for their loved ones. It took nearly 30 minutes for me to find out that my son wasn't lying dead in a hallway. And it took hours longer for us to be reunited at the Coliseum. Hours that over 1,000 people were not able to properly eat or drink, even after authorities knew that the shooter was no longer on campus. During the trip to the Coliseum, parents were supposed to form a car line since we couldn't be told where we were going for security reasons. Many cars got lost because intersections were not shut down, and we had to call the police to find out where we were supposed to be going. At the Coliseum, there was zero methodology figured out for reuniting frantic parents and traumatized kids. That day showed how unprepared our district was for something that is, sadly, a regular occurrence in our country. I fully support preparing for the worst while we all pray that we never have to use that training again. One final note, in the days following the Tabor shooting, and this is not just people on the board, this is just in general, plenty of authorities were on TV saying that they knew how families felt because they had kids in the public schools currently or in the past. Frankly, that is an insult to the families who didn't know if their loved one was killed. If you didn't have a loved one in the building, you don't know how it felt, just like I don't know how it felt to be one of the people inside of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have the next order of business is the superintendent's update.
Thank you. Just waiting on the PowerPoint. Thank you. All right, go ahead and go to the first slide. Thank you. So We did not bring this evening. Originally, we were going to be bringing a potential change to the board for a vote, and we are not doing that at this time. We had been looking at bell schedules, as everyone knows that either participated or read any of the information online. We're looking to change them because currently our district has a large variation of start and end times. We have about 14 different start and end times within our district. And so to change that would have meant increasing bell times. But while we were doing that, we were thinking, oh, that's a great opportunity to actually give more time for learning as well. But with tons of feedback, and I can't remember the exact number, I think it was over 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 respondents, 80% or 85, now my numbers are getting wrong. I put it in something out to teachers and to staff. I think it was about 80% were opposed to any of these changes right now. So we pulled back. That's why we asked for feedback. It's to actually use it. And we're not ready at this time to make changes like this. As we move forward in future years, at next year, as we go throughout the year, we really do need to try to clean up without, clean up the bell times as far as having fewer than 14. So at some point, we will try to clean those up because it helps with efficiency. It does help with transportation. But what we're going to do, we're really going to be working on routes this summer. Our transportation team has a lot of strategizing they're doing around how to clean up routes, since we have so many routes with all of our choices and magnet programs and all of that. So long story short, no changes now. That's why it's not on the agenda for a vote, because we're not changing bell schedules. And thank you to all those folks that actually provided feedback. I think that's why we do surveys, and we do a lot of them, I know, but it's actually to use those results. So again, thank you everyone that participated in that. And you can see, oh, there it is. There's the answer. There's the number I was looking for. It was on my next slide. All right, next slide. Something that's very good news. You're going to hear about 2 grants this evening that were written. But we have under Mr. Kraft, we've got a grants team. And they have been working very hard with staff to seek whatever grant funds are out there and available. And so this is a list of grants. You can see some of our folks tonight have talked about the Teacher and School Leader Incentive Grant. We're so excited about receiving that federal grant for over $13 million. We received Title I Playground Grant. We received the School Safety Grant, which you're going to hear a little bit more about this evening as well. Place Matters, the United Way. We received a 21st Century, and this is just this school year. And also a Taking Effective School Violence Prevention to Scale, another almost $1 million. So altogether, just this school year, we have over $15 million in grants that we've written for and actually received. And so that's a big thank you to all the staff that has worked on that. That's bringing more funding and support into our school district. So, yes. And then also, this month is Women's History Month, so very excited about that. So just I know there's going to be a lot of festivities and a lot of learning about the amazing women, past and present, that we get to the honor to learn more about and to hear stories and to just impact. We did an exercise Monday and staff about who is someone in your life, a woman that has had a huge impact. Many people said their mothers, so I was one of them. But also, so thank you to everyone, and happy Women's History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business is discussion items. We have Andrew Kraft, our Chief Equity and Accountability Officer, and he will present our market share report.
Thank you, Chair Kaplan. Every year I get to bring to you information on how many of the students, that is school-age students in our county, decide to attend public schools. And for those students that choose not to, where do they go? Do they go to homeschool, private school, or charter school? So let's take a look at that data now. And you see that we've maintained a large percentage of the market share of students choosing to attend public schools here in Forsyth County. Frankly, it's something we should be very proud of. You see the other large urban districts here in the state, and Winston-Salem outperforms the state and almost every large urban district. You know that I've taken this to you every year, and historically I've not put Cumberland County on there. I did on purpose this year, and we could debate is it proper or not. The reason I put it on there is they're about the same size as us, and their demographics are very similar to us. And so for that reason, Cumberland County is on there. Here's one thing I'd point out to you. If you compare 2011, that's that first column there, to 2020, what you'll see is that we've lost very, very little market share. You see it's dropped from about 84.7% down to 81.5%. That is a very small decline in our market share. We can be extremely happy with that. And then you see 2021, right, where we had a larger drop. You see in all those other years, we never dropped more than about a point, right? But then suddenly in 2021, we had this significant drop. Now, people in my line of work, they want to do research to say exactly why was that. I have a theory, and I think you'll probably share this theory around COVID, is a guess, right? I think that's a safe guess. You'll note that all the other districts had that similar drop last year, and of course the pandemic was felt across the state. So what'll be interesting is when I bring this back to you next year, will we see an increase? We'll be excited to see what that looks like. But again, this should be really a point of pride for our district because parents say, we trust the public schools, we believe in the public schools, and we're going to put our children in the public schools here. So again, there are about 20% of the kids that choose not to attend public schools in Forsyth County. So let's answer the question, well, where do they go? And so you see one option is charter schools. And again, we're below the rest of the state with the exception, the other large urbans that is, with the exception of Cumberland County. You'll see that our charter school enrollment has risen slightly from the first year that I reported here at 3% to this past year at 5.8%. And what you'll see with most other districts is that their increase has been more dramatic than ours has. And so charter schools are growing across the state, but they're growing much more quickly in other districts than they are here in Forsyth County. Again, that will tell you that parents are choosing public schools rather than charters. Homeschool is another option for parents. And this is an interesting trend in that you'll see, yes, there's been a slight increase from 2011 up to 2020. You see this drop that we experienced, right, for the first time in 2020, an entire point drop from 7.5 down to 6.5, and then we saw that large increase. Again, a theory would be COVID had an impact on that. So we'll see what it looks like next year as we test that theory, assuming we're moving out of the pandemic. And then the last option for students that we report on is private schools. And this has maintained very, very steady from 8.2, actually declined from 8.2 in 2011 to 7.3 here in 2021. And what's interesting here is that in almost every other large urban, it's been steady across the board. So you don't see dramatic rise or dramatic fall. One exception there is Charlotte Meck, right, who saw a fall. But for the most part, across the state, private school enrollment has been steady across the state of North Carolina and here in Forsyth County. And so then this is the last slide I want to show you here. Again, it may have been interesting if I would have put 2020 instead of 2021, considering the pandemic that we experienced. But what I do emphasize to you here is that the change, that is our decline in market share, ours is smaller than any other urban county in the state of North Carolina. And again, I think we can be proud of that because although we have lost some market share in this period of time, we have lost less than any other large urban district in the state of North Carolina. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Next are the grant updates, the school safety grant and the teacher and school leader grant presented by Brent Cook and Leslie Alexander.
So Chair Kaplan, I'm just going to introduce this topic real quick and then pass it off to Dr. Alexander and Brent. And the reason I'm going to do that, you heard the announcement that Superintendent McManus made. I want to make sure that we give credit where it's due. And Victoria Fulton is here in the room somewhere. There she is. So Victoria is our new grant writer, and that's the reason we've gotten this money. We're very, very lucky to have her. I'm really glad to hear the speakers tonight. Now, Victoria doesn't decide what goes in those grants. She gets advised by folks here, but we're very lucky to have it in 6 months, right? Almost $15 million. Wow. So we're glad for your work.
Thank
Victoria.
you.
Yeah, Andy and Victoria are both amazing, so we're really, really grateful for them. Lots of good stuff. The last time I was up, I was talking about the Principal Pipeline Grant, so lots of good grants happening. We're really excited about it. I can't tell you which I'm more excited about with this grant because there's two really important components of it. It's from the it's a federal grant from the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education Effectiveness Educator Division. It's a 3 to a 5 year grant, so it's 3 guaranteed, and then we can apply it for up to 2 more. The overall grant focus is really making sure we have high-quality educators in our most underserved schools, and it is a $13.5 million grant, so that's good money, really excited. And it's a teacher and leader incentive program, so there's two components to it. There's district-level grant components, and there's school-level components. And so the district grant components are developing an in-house licensure program. That is so exciting because we do not have enough licensed teachers. And so, right now you can currently get an emergency or a provisional license, but those are only good for a year, and you have to get your residency license, and it can be expensive. And so we will be able to have our own licensure program in-house. What's really cool is that for the 3 years of this grant, or for the life of the grant, anyone who participates in that will do so free of cost, no cost. After the grant, there will be some fees, but it will be much less costly than if they attended a university. So it's a great idea. We're super excited about it. And then we're also expanding the teacher cadet program. So this is so exciting for me because when we think about a pipeline, that is the beginning of our pipeline. And it's really going to help us with in a couple of areas. The demographics of our district are beautiful. They're like 30-30-30, right? They're 34% white, I think, 30% black, 28% Hispanic, but our educators do not represent that. We're 74% white, 21% black, and only 4% Hispanic. So if we're really going to build that teacher pipeline, we've got to get these programs into our schools. And currently only 3 schools, Tabor, Walkertown, and East Forsyth, have the teacher cadet program. So next year we'll be bringing on Winston-Salem Prep, we'll bring on Reynolds, Glenn, and North. And then the following year, we'll bring on the 5 additional high schools. So we'll have teacher cadet in all of our high schools. And that's really exciting. The other deliverable for this, when they call it a teacher and school leader grant, is that we're going to be developing a repository of online PD that principals and assistant principals and school leaders can access, especially those leaders that are working in our most underserved schools. So that's an exciting deliverable. And then the school level deliverables, we will target 28 schools. And so there will be a list of those schools here in a minute. In those schools, there's 2 components. There is a recruitment bonus, and then there is a performance bonus. So if you are not in one of those 28 schools and you choose to move to one of those 28 schools, if you have the qualifying EVOS growth data, then you can earn a bonus for going to that school. If you're already in one of the 28 schools, you don't get the recruitment bonus because you're already there, but since you're already there, you can get the performance bonus. And so the performance bonus means when EVOS scores come back in the fall, if you are at that school, then you can earn an incentive as well. So there's a couple different variations to that, and I think that's probably in the paperwork here. I won't go into great detail, but there's individual teacher bonuses and administrator bonuses for tested areas, and then there's some bonus for if the whole school meets their goal. So exciting stuff happening, and we're really thankful to have this in our district and look forward to making the best of it. Any questions?
Harold? Board Member Barker.
On the teachers who will receive the EVOS bonus, what if you're in a grade level that is not tested? Because I know a lot of the real groundwork that makes other teachers successful later on happens in kindergarten, first grade. Is there any incentives for those?
Yeah, there is a school-wide bonus. So if the school meets its growth overall as a school, even if you're a teacher in a non-tested area, you do get a bonus.
So that bonus will go toward all the other teachers in
Absolutely.
the school. Okay,
Yes.
good. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure. Thank you.
All right. Any other ones? Okay. Thank you, Brent.
Okay. Thank you.
So, good evening, Board Chair Kaplan, members of the board, and Ms. McManus. So my name is Brent Cook. I'm the Director of Security Technologies here for the district. Just want to talk about the Safer Schools grant that we were awarded. It's a grant from DPI's Center for School Safety. The overall grant focus is basically just improving safety in public schools by providing grants for initiatives, including school safety training and equipment. So this year we were awarded $322,500. $315 of it was for equipment, and $7,500 was for the training. So a little detail about that. We were able to fund 2 walk-through metal detectors for each school. Let me stress, these are portable walk-through metal detectors. They are not installed metal detectors. They're on wheels. They have batteries that last up to 8 hours once they're charged up. Our vision for these was to be used at athletic events, special circumstances, anywhere the school may feel they need that enhanced security. We never intend for these to be used every day in the schools. That was never our intention with this at all. It was to be completely flexible and to be used. That's why we did one for all of our satellite athletic facilities, Deaton Thompson. We did some for Reynolds Auditorium. We did administrative buildings here, education building here. So that's kind of the gist around the metal detectors. We also were able to fund 1 additional AED device for all of our facilities. Currently, every school has at least 1. And some of the high schools have multiples. We have a great example here tonight that I used to work with. So we want to fund 1 additional one for every facility, because we do have a few satellite facilities that we have some maintenance work going on in that we may not have one. So this gives us that flexibility to do that. The I Love You Guys training, the standard response protocol basically allows us to realign our crisis verbiage to where it's not community lockdown and lockdown. We'll have a more specific and terms that are more clear and concise and easy to understand if we need to go into a crisis situation that may not need to be a lockdown. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the standard response protocol training. And then I think you guys heard about the reunification training from a speaker earlier. We saw a need for that, obviously, with past events. And so this is going to allow us to train up to 250 people. They're going to come on site, do the training with us. It'll allow us to train additional staff. And I think it's going to be a really good asset to our security department and for the district. So basically that's the grant. So I'm ready for questions. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I just wanted to ask again, when a grant gets submitted, it gets submitted for exactly what's in it, and that it's not, here's your money, and then you can decide what to do. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We have to be very, very specific about what we're wanting to purchase with the grant, even down to having quotes and knowing exactly how much things are going to cost.
Right,
And then
so-
we have to report back to DPI on how we used it, how we're implementing it, how things are going with it. That's what we've had to do in the past on these grants.
Right, because I think sometimes people don't really understand that you don't get the money and then decide. You have to submit it exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Board Member Parker? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, go ahead, Meryl.
2 things. With the training and the train the trainer, will law enforcement also be included in that so that they understand what on-site, on school? I mean, I hope it will be all-inclusive, because one thing I heard is that there was a lot of disconnects from all the different players, to our speaker's point. And I just want to make sure that would be a part of it.
They will be part of it, but Jonathan maybe can speak more to that.
Yes, ma'am. If you remember, we had some discussion earlier about how we, as Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System, want to lead the way for our community. So these terminologies that we would use, as opposed to having the word community lockdown, but having a stair-step of approach for an escalating situation, our first responders and our partners need to know what those things mean, or it's no good to us. So actually, in the next couple of days, and next couple of weeks, August Vernon, you guys know August Vernon, myself, and some members of our first responder community are going to meet with I Love You Guys to kind of plan what our training would look like. So again, it's 250 people live, but there's an untold number of people that we could do virtually. So we want to have every first responder, and even, I don't know if we can do it in this grant, but we want charters and privates and those folks to have an opportunity to be involved in this as well.
And my second question is, how do we do our CPR training now? How many folks do? Is it a site-based decision, or do we do CPR training, or?
I'm gonna have to defer that question to someone else, like a school nurse, because I don't know that.
Okay, so that would come from the school nurses
Yes, ma'am.
department?
The AEDs are a little separate from the CPR.
Sure, but I know whenever, because I used to have to take CPR training every 2 years, but, but I know they do, during that time, you're trained on an AED as well, so,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. I'm just curious, because I mean, that was a good point brought up tonight, is how many people do we have trained in who makes that decision and all that? I think thank you, if you can find out that information, that'd be great.
That was a good point. I know, I was telling Jonathan, Forsyth Tech offers that CPR certification right beside Bolton Elementary at their Bolton campus. And we get those emails, and I think some of the principals get those, so we can sign people up for that. It's $3 certification.
We used to receive those as board members. We were pre-COVID when they were doing those. I know we were on that loop, and it was, if you have time or if you need to redo your certification, there's 5 open spaces or whatever. And I'm assuming that just stopped because of COVID, and it just started back.
And the Heart Association also does training that they'll do, group trainings too, so.
Board Member Crowley?
Yes, I have a question about the metal detectors. You talked about them being mobile. And I know sometimes what we intend for how they should be used versus how they end up being used can be two different things. I guess my concern is there a scenario where a school will have it set up where that's what every student enters through every day, because that's what that site wants?
It's, I mean, it's really not feasible for a high school to have one point of entry in the morning. I mean, unless you want the arrival time to be, excruciatingly long, just spread out. The reason that, we were kind of having a vision for events. We're already doing the wanding at football games. We've done clear bags at football games. That one absolutely has a single point of entry to that event. For the schools, we were just going to let it be flexible. If they feel they've had a concern and they want to put on metal to, pull it out one day for one entrance, I mean, like I think we've discussed tonight, sometimes it is about the optics of it. So really, we're going to leave it flexible to them, but the benefit is it's movable. You charge it up. Actually, at the football games, it'll take less staff because we don't have to have 2 people wanding and searching through things. It's some more free-flowing entrance at that point. So, yes, ma'am.
My question was, with the metal detectors, we got a lot of doors in our schools. And I'm just concerned as to how we're going to decide where that's not a whole lot, where 2 metal detectors are going to be going in a huge school, and who's going to make that decision?
Correct. So that's part of the flexibility. Our vision for it was to mainly be used at athletic events, special events that they're having on campus, but give them the flexibility if they want to use it at the front door one day. Or we realize that it's not going to cover every door. For instance, at West Forsyth, which has multiple buildings, kids are going straight to their class, they're going into a satellite building. We've been able to do door controls, and we're moving through that also at our high schools, but that's after everybody gets there. It's a pathway once the school gets in place. So, like I said, our intention was never to have them installed and never to have them as a fixture for every day coming into school. It was just as an option and for the sporting events and the special events and things like that.
Board Member Jones?
So I think that that Board Member Crowley, brought up that we know that there's autonomy in each school, and I understand if there is something that's happened or has been brought to an administrator's attention that they feel that it needs to be used in a particular day. But I would hope that there would be some oversight, probably with the area superintendents that are in the schools all the time, that if we see that things are being used on a routine basis, and that's not the intent, that be questioned as to why it's being done that way. I don't feel that we want to have one school that kind of has that as a daily fixture in their culture. I don't
Agreed.
think that would not be a school that I would want
Right.
to go into every day.
Well, yeah,
Agreed.
we'll be clear on before they're sent out anywhere, at any facility, what the protocols are for using them, what the intended uses are, training and all that'll be part of this, so.
And don't they have to be manned? Doesn't somebody have to be physically beside them?
Yeah, I mean, if
to
you
make
use them
sure?
and it goes off, if nobody's there, what's the purpose of having it there? Yeah,
so
somebody would have to be there.
manned, but, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah.
but like I said, at the sporting events, you've already got 2 people there doing wands and pulling people, so this would just be not having the wand.
Board
And these
member.
do come with a wand. The package, the package from the company, they did us a great package deal because we told them we wanted portability and a long-lasting battery. And so they threw a hand wand in with every single unit. So every unit's going to get an additional hand wand, which will let the flow continue to go through if someone does. If it's at a football game and you've got a big line, you know, can do that a little better.
Board Member Bohannon?
Thank you. So relative to the metal detectors, so is the expectation that they be manned by a staff member in the building or the SRO? Or is that just based on the principal's decision? It's up to the...
That's the school's decision on how they're manning their entries now for their sporting events, who's doing the wanding. A lot of times it's probably not the SRO, it's probably staff that are doing the wanding at those events. And then if they need to intervene with the officer, at that point we'd have, you know, the sheriff's department's there, Kernersville, if it's in Kernersville, we have officers there. They're at the front gate, but the officer is correct. They're not doing the wanding. We're doing the wanding. And then if they intervene, if it's that case. Yeah, in Kernersville, they do the wanding, yeah. So.
Okay, and then my other question is to the training. So to Board Member Parker's point, and just to be a little bit more explicit about the concern. So my understanding was that on the day, the breakdown in communication was really related to the fact that with our law enforcement partners, there was expectation on sort of their behalf that like they knew what was going on and we deferred to them relative to safety, where to go, what to do. But we as the district were the people who sort of had the information. We knew sort of we had our own sort of plan for the reunification process. I just want to make sure that in this training, we are being really intentional about having those conversations with our law enforcement partners so that if a situation like this arises again, we are sort of trusted to do what it is that we know how to do.
So I will say that as much as we learned the things that we need to improve on, I think law enforcement learned that the real pros in managing students logistically are our staff. And so I think they will be more than happy to allow us to take over and handle the reunification process and allow them to focus their efforts on other parts of that investigation and other parts of what's going on for any future event that we may have. You know, whether it be, and you know, sometimes we have to evacuate a building because there's a gas leak. We have to evacuate a building because of something short of the tragedy that we had earlier this school year. But there will be times when we need to reunify parents and their students for much smaller things.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Board Member Jones?
And so I know the scope for this grant has been set, but I do think that we have at some point through the budget or another grant or in conversations with our athletic trainers and our medical community, having those AEDs and having them where teams are participating in events. I mean, thank goodness we had an AED and this young man was on campus where they could get to it, but so many of our schools practice cross country, field hockey, I mean, so many things. It's swimming, golf, right. So many things that take place across the district off-site. And so, we are fortunate enough to sit in a community that has a large medical presence. And so, maybe that's a conversation that we could have to make sure that those are available to where students and staff really have those. I appreciate having 95 more, that's great. But we know that when activities are taking place, that those 95 won't cover it all, even that additional. So if we see opportunities moving forward where we can do that, I think that would be great to look at. And again, the last couple of years, we've had a lot of conversation with our medical community around wanting and giving us guidance on what they felt was best for our students and staff. And I'm sure that they could see an opportunity to help provide something for us, maybe they will do that.
Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is action items. The first is consider approval of the camera project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have a couple of announcements. Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, we will have a board and staff workshop. Tuesday, March 22nd, we will have our finance and curriculum committee meetings as well as our regular meeting of the Board of Education. Before we begin the section of our meeting in which anyone can comment on anything, let me say to our Cable 2 viewers, thank you for watching. This will conclude our broadcast. At this time,
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.
Getting that look in your eyes, and it's starting